Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to journey far beyond what our naked eyes can actually see. We're diving headfirst into the microscopic world to build a rock-solid biology foundation, specifically tailored for those of you kicking off your NEAT Foundation Class 8 biology prep. Whether you're studying for exams or just kind of fascinated by the hidden universe around us, mastering cell theory and microscopic life is absolutely essential. So let's just dive right in. Our roadmap for today is packed. We're going to cover unveiling the microscopic world, the universal cell theory, anatomy of a cell, plant versus animal cells, the world of microorganisms, and finally, whether these microbes are our friends or foes. Starting off with Section 1, Unveiling the Microscopic World. Let's look at a bit of historical discovery. For most of human history, we were literally blind to a whole hidden universe of living creatures, simply because our eyes just aren't strong enough. But then, boom, lenses were invented and we had this rapid explosion of discovery. Back in 1665, Robert Hooke looked at a thin slice of cork under a really simple microscope. He saw these tiny, empty, box-like structures that kind of reminded him of honeycomb compartments where monks lived, so he actually coined the term cells. Hopefully the monks didn't mind the comparison. Then, in the 1670s, Anton van Leeuwenhoek, who is often called the father of microbiology, used improved lenses to observe active living cells like bacteria for the very first time. And this set the stage for scientists like Schleiden, Schwann, and Virchow to completely revolutionize biology later on. It is honestly amazing to think that these early, simple, curved pieces of glass, some magnifying up to 300 times, unlocked an entirely hidden universe. Hooke documented these beautiful, detailed drawings in his famous book, Micrographia. He didn't even know it yet, but he was literally looking at the fundamental building blocks of all living things. Moving on to Section 2, the universal cell theory. Let's talk about the building blocks of life. So as these new magnifying tools spread across the scientific community, a universal biological truth started to emerge. Observations from plants, animals, pond water, they all pointed to one undeniable fact. The cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. Think about a massive, sprawling mansion. No matter how complex its design, it's fundamentally built out of individual bricks, right? Well, just like that house, every single living organism, from the tiniest bacteria to a massive blue whale, is built of these foundational units called cells. They are the absolute smallest entities capable of carrying out all the functions necessary for survival, like growth, metabolism, and reproduction. This whole understanding eventually crystallized into what we call the universal cell theory. It really boils down to a trio of rules. In 1838 and 1839, botanist Matthias Schleiden and zoologist Theodor Schwann laid down the first two tenets. All living things are made of cells, and the cell is the basic unit of life. A bit later, in 1855, Rudolf Virchow added the final, crucial piece of the puzzle. All cells arise from pre-existing cells. They don't just magically appear out of nowhere. Life continues in an unbroken chain from one cell to the very next. All right, Section 3, Anatomy of a Cell. Let's take a peek inside. If you want a really great mental model for your NEAT foundation, try treating the cell like a bustling, microscopic city. It's got borders, a control center, busy factories, the whole shebang. Every city needs a protective wall and gates, and for the cell, this is the plasma membrane. According to the fluid mosaic model proposed by Singer and Nicholson, this isn't some rigid, solid wall. Not at all. It's a dynamic, flexible double layer of phospholipids, studded with proteins. It acts as a selectively permeable gatekeeper, strictly regulating exactly what enters and exits the cell to keep everything perfectly balanced. Now, let's venture deeper inside. Taking up most of the cell's volume is this jelly-like fluid called the cytoplasm. And deep within that lies the city hall. This is the nucleus, discovered by Robert Brown back in 1831. The nucleus is the absolute control center of the cell. It directs all cellular activities, and most importantly, it's the vault that stores your DNA, that vital genetic blueprint passed down to the next generation. Now for Section 4, Plant versus Animal Cells. Let's look at some structural differences. While all cells share some common features like the membrane, cytoplasm, and nucleus, there are definitely distinct architectural differences depending on the organism. I mean, have you ever wondered what makes a towering tree stand upright without a skeleton? It's all in the cellular architecture. Plant cells have this rigid outer cell wall made of cellulose that gives them incredible structural strength. Animal cells completely lack this wall. On top of that, plant cells contain plastids like chloroplasts for photosynthesis, and they feature this massive central vacuole that maintains water pressure, keeping the plant turgid. Animal cells, on the flip side, have very small vacuoles if they have them at all, but they do possess a centrosome which helps with cell division, and that's actually something plants manage to do without. But a single cell rarely acts alone in a large creature. Whether it's a plant or an animal, these cells organize themselves into a strict hierarchy. Similar cells group together to form a tissue. Then various tissues combine to create an organ, like a heart or a leaf. Those organs work in harmony within an organ system. And finally, all those systems operating together give us a complete, functioning, living organism. It is literally a masterpiece of biological engineering. Let's move to section 5, the world of microorganisms, zooming in on the tiny world around us. Zooming back out from the anatomy of single cells to our invisible world, let's meet the actual microorganisms. These tiny guys are broadly classified into 5 major groups: bacteria, fungi, protozoa, algae, and viruses. Now, viruses are a bit of a unique exception because they're strictly considered acellular, meaning they lack a typical cell structure and can only reproduce by hijacking a living host cell. But the rest of these groups? They're fully functioning organisms, each with highly specialized physical characteristics and some pretty extreme survival skills. The staggering diversity here is just mind-blowing. You've got single-celled or unicellular organisms like amoeba or paramecium zipping around in a drop of pond water. And then you have multicellular microbes like rhizopus, which you probably just know as bread mold. These microorganisms are incredibly adaptable, thriving literally everywhere, from boiling hot springs to the ice-cold, crushing depths of the ocean. Let's look a little closer at bacteria, which are hands down some of the most resilient microbes on Earth. Unlike the complex plant and animal cells we looked at earlier, bacterial cells are prokaryotic. That means they lack a true membrane-bound nucleus. Instead, their genetic material, their DNA, just floats openly in a specific region of the cytoplasm called the nucleoid. They also have a ridded cell wall, but unlike our plant friends, it is not made of cellulose. And finally, section 6, microbes, friends or foes? Let's talk about their impact on our lives. Since they live everywhere, from deep in the soil to right inside our own digestive tracts, we really have to ask, are these tiny invisible inhabitants our allies or our enemies? Well, the truth is, they're kind of both. It's super easy to focus on the foes, the pathogens. Certain bacteria, viruses, and fungi cause severe illnesses ranging from the common cold to devastating agricultural blights. But if you look at the big picture, the vast majority of microbes act as essential allies. They're nature's ultimate environmental cleaners, decomposing waste. They produce biogas for energy, they fix nitrogen in the soil for our crops, and they are absolutely crucial partners in producing the food we eat every single day. For example, just look at how much we rely on them in the kitchen. When you add a spoonful of starter to warm milk, the bacteria Lactobacillus rapidly multiplies, converting milk sugars into lactic acid to create thick, delicious curds. Similarly, baker's yeast, which is a type of microscopic fungus, breaks down sugars in dough during respiration. This process releases carbon dioxide gas, which gets trapped and makes our bread dough incredibly soft, airy, and fluffy. Out in nature, microbes are absolute superheroes. Take Rhizobium bacteria, for instance. They form a symbiotic relationship with legume plants, living right in the root nodules and pulling nitrogen directly out of the air to naturally fertilize the soil. Or consider microalgae. These tiny plant-like organisms in our oceans pump out more than half of the oxygen in Earth's entire atmosphere. There are even microbes like spirulina that we cultivate as nutrient-dense superfoods because they're packed with over 60% protein. Which brings us to our final thought. Considering that these microscopic entities digest our environmental waste, grow our food, form the foundation of global food chains, and quite literally produce the very oxygen we breathe, we're left with a pretty staggering realization. The giants of this planet completely and utterly depend on its smallest inhabitants. If the microscopic world just vanished tomorrow, the visible world would collapse instantly. So, as you continue your biology journey, ask yourself, are we truly the masters of this planet, or are we just guests in a world run entirely by invisible microbes? Thanks so much for learning with me today.